There's a lot of fear around debt too. I mean, some people are just raised to think that credit cards are bad, but it's all about how you use them. And if you educate yourself more about them on how to use them for them to benefit you, then they become really powerful tools. Speaking of disconnecting and finding your way around, I think Teresa and I are trying to figure out how disconnecting and what vacation looks like now with 2 kids.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's the thing that we're trying to figure out. I'm listening to you talk about that. And obviously for you, you've had different versions of vacationing with family and without for your life. Now we're going through that. It's not so easy.
No.
Got to figure it out.
So what are you doing to figure it out? Do you have a plan?
No, we don't have a plan.
Do you have a place you want to go or a timeline to go there? How old is Lincoln?
Well, so Lincoln is coming up on a year. He's 11 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God. He's 11 months?
11 months. Yeah. I don't think you can see it now. He uses his head for everything. So we bought him a little helmet because he crawls around and he just pushes stuff out of the way with his head.
Oh my God.
And he headbutts me all the time because he just it's too heavy for his body sometimes. I got a black eye like a week ago from it. I had a big old bruise under.
How funny.
These little remnants from these kiddos that you just want to they do it and you get so mad, but you love him. He's just smiling because he's just, it's the most adorable thing when they do it. He just throws his head into you and it's like love, right?
Yeah.
It's just them. They want to bury their head in your chest and your face and everything.
Yes.
So it's the sweetest thing. But we have not been, we are not super ambitious to put them on a plane. Rose is, obviously, Rose is turning 3 in beginning of next year, and Lincoln will be 1. And so we haven't been super ambitious. So road trip stuff is what we want to do.
So you want to vacation with kids?
No, but...
No? Well, what is the hesitation?
The balance, I think, the balance is how long, right? If we want to do mini vacations, we're setting that. That's like a 2025 tangible. We're going to take a couple of mini vacations. That's just the 2 of us.
Mm-hmm.
The longer term stuff is where do we take them that they can still have fun, but there's everything's easy with 2 kids. And that's where we are now.
I have some advice. Do you want some advice?
Of course.
So my pediatrician told me this when we had kids. We had the best pediatrician, Dr. Frances Pang. She's amazing. She left and worked for Doctors Without Borders for a while, so we lost her. But she was so educationally driven, so she wanted to give parents tools before they needed tools. So one of the things that she said to us was, the least convenient time to travel with children are between the ages of 6 and 18 months.
Yeah.
That those ages, it's really disruptive to them.
Yeah.
And you can't really communicate with them what's going on. So it's just disruptive.
Yeah.
So if you can avoid traveling with kids and keep them on their schedule and their routine, obviously it's not always possible. You have a wedding, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a kid. It's going to be okay. But if you're like, how do I make this easy on myself? I thought that was really great advice, especially to put them on a plane because their ears pop, they scream. And I thought that was just a good little parameter.
Well, that's where we've been with Rose. We just got out of the 18 months not long ago last year, and then Lincoln came along, and so now we're in that. So it hasn't been high pressure for us to do it, but now we're reaching Lincoln becoming a year. We're reaching that. Rose will enjoy stuff, anything new, and for him, it's just getting to a point where he's going to be outside the 18 months, and then we're
good.
We'll set sail.
So 6 months.
Yeah. So we're prioritizing maybe more so the mini vacations for us. And then it's just, who's taking care of the kids for those 1 or 2 days.
Who would take care of the kids for those 1 or 2 days?
Grandparents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you got that set. I think it's good to go away for 2 nights.
Yeah.
Just 2 nights, because the first time Bert and I went away, Isla was an easy baby.
Yeah.
But I had 2 babies in about that time, 3 years. I had 2 babies. And the first time we went away, just to set your expectations, Friday night, I slept 12 hours.
Yeah.
Saturday night, I slept 18 hours. And Sunday, we went home. I was so exhausted that Bert got home and went, well, that sucked for me.
So
I sat at the pool by myself.
Teresa and I just talked about that like 1 or 2 days ago, where she's like, I just want to go and sleep. I just want to sleep. And I go, my comment was, I want you to go ready to enjoy it. But our mindsets are just slightly different because she's in that moment of like, I'm just trying to catch up on sleep. Even just this morning, taking Rose to school, she said, I'm finally feeling like I'm recovering from Lincoln and coming out of the fog, which is great. It's awesome to hear because there's nothing, I feel helpless a lot of the time, especially for the last year or two, of wanting to help her, but I can't, until she's feeling, like she's coming out of it. So it's great.
It just takes time.
Yeah.
It's only time, and it does pass. But I remember that trip, we went to Palm Springs. So it was, if we needed to come home, we could. And we stayed in this really beautiful Spanish-style resort. And Bert just, as every time I woke up, there was food.
Yeah.
I don't know how he knew when I was going to wake up, but he always had food. So I would wake up and eat and literally just go back to sleep. He was so incredibly patient. He booked me a massage.
Yeah.
He really just had the instinct to take care of me and not need a lot.
Yeah.
And it was the best gift I could have gotten. And then not long after that, I think we actually went on a trip and did something. But that unplugged, I don't think even in my house, I really slept until I was out of my house and knew my kids were handled and that I let them go, sort of. And you can't let them go when you're home. I mean, I spent, I think, probably, until they left the house with one ear open.
Yeah.
Like, because every phase comes with something. As teenagers, you're like one ear open all the time. And then you go to middle school, still one ear open for a different reason. And elementary school, are they sick? Do they need something? They have a nightmare,
Yeah.
Both my kids had sleep anxiety. So all through elementary school, they were up and down at night in no kind of consistent way.
When did you recognize that they had sleep? When did that come out for them?
Georgia was born with it. Georgia was a terrible sleeper from birth. And we tried sleep training. We tried everything. And at a certain point, I just kind of would rock her to sleep and do my very best to get her like in the crib as easily as I could.
Yeah.
But she showed up with it. But I somewhat mistakenly tried to help her with it myself and realized pretty late this was out of my pay grade.
Right.
And it's one of the things I wouldn't say regret, but I question how I handled it because I tried a lot of different things. I tried, being gentle, being kind, being a tough love parent. I tried, threatening her with a consequence. I tried a reward system and nothing really worked. And they just wanted to be in bed with me. And it was a boundary that I needed for myself.
Yeah.
I was a single parent most of the time, and I needed like a line, like 7:30 to 10:30 is mine.
Yeah.
You get the rest of the day, but that's mine. And I just didn't want them in the bed. That was my own philosophy. I had plenty of friends who had kids that had sleep trouble, and the kids slept with them until they got ready to leave when they were like 9, 10 years old. That's just not what we did.
Right.
And so at a certain point, I thought to myself, I don't know what I'm doing. Everything I'm trying is not working. Let's go see a therapist that works with anxiety. Anxiety is riddled in Bert's family.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has anxiety in his family except his mom. So when I went to the therapist, she gave me a lot of understanding because she said to me, sleep anxiety isn't as formulaic as you may think to deal with. You have to really understand how the kid processes their anxiety to understand how to help them alleviate it. And both my kids had sleep anxiety. And I took Isla shortly after I took Georgia, and she explained the difference to me in the two kids, and it was pretty profound. So I had sleep anxiety actually as a kid. Mine was probably because my parents were so, back and forth that I didn't feel stable. So I had my own methods, and then I tried to give that to my kids, but their anxiety came from something different.
Sure. Yeah.
Mine came from like instability. Theirs came from wiring. So Dr. Nicely was her name, explained to me their wiring and what they needed to satiate their, anxiousness. And it's insane how it works. And Bert's sleep anxiety looks like Isla's, but George's doesn't look like theirs.
The leap to get, and we've spoken previously about this, my daughter Rose, taking the leap to seek professional help in an area where you go, I think this is outside my pay grade, or willing to just go, I don't know what I'm doing, whatever it is. When Rose started school, she was very shy and quiet, and the teachers kind of said, we don't know if she has a speech issue or what it is. And Teresa and I knew, well, she's super talkative at home. It's not a speech issue, I don't think, but sure, let's seek the advice. And just the ripping of the Band-Aid and going, okay, it's not a bad thing if someone's saying, get someone who knows what to do to help you figure it out. And then to get the feedback, some good, some bad. This is what she needs work on, but she's excellent in these areas. And you go, such a deep breath or of relief where you go like, oh, okay, so she's fine. She's just shy. She's not talking because she's shy and she needs to be, whatever the case is. But taking those little leaps to go, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm doing my best, but I don't know what sleep anxiety diagnoses are and what to do to help them.
That's right. Yeah. I think with Isla, her stuff younger, her sensory processing stuff and her reading stuff, to me were so kind of obviously out of my pay grade. But the sleep, I was like, I had this.
Yeah.
I can figure this out. You are just being unruly.
Right.
You need to not eat sugar. You need to brush your teeth at the same time every night. You need to read a book. And, it just wasn't that. Early intervention with any issue is always better.
Right.
But you also don't want to panic and be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
My kid has everything. And I think relaxing in, finding the right person to diagnose and then really trusting that person is key.
Yeah.
And, there's so many services that are available for people who don't have a lot of money, especially if you go to a public school system. If you can flag something with your public school system, the public school system will do a lot of, almost all of Isla's testing was done through LAUSD.
Well, and that's what Rose's was. It was the school saying, hey, we have a person that comes every week and she can spend time with Rose. She'll reach out to you and it's been great. So yeah.
It's awesome.
It's just saying yes to that sort of thing.
It's just not being afraid to get the answer.
Yeah.
I think parents, I talked about this a long time ago on my podcast. There's a death of a dream when you have a kid that has some distinction, right?
Right.
Where your kid is just going to have an easy life. That's a dream. Everybody wants their kid to be like, okay, they learn typically, they grow typically, they make friends typically. Wouldn't that be great? But when your kid has something that really has to be addressed, it's hard to swallow sometimes. I mean, even with Isla's sensory processing stuff, the only place I found that I was willing to take her to was a 45-minute drive, which required 3 days a week, an hour and a half each day.
Yeah.
That's a commitment. But so you have to go, I'm willing to get the answer to my question and then follow through with what that diagnosis requires. And that is a lot for a lot of people.
Yep.
But at the same time, what's the alternative? Just let her suffer and struggle? That seems lame and not very good parenting. But it is kind of scary to sit. When we first had Isla, I was like, is she autistic? Is she, does she have like severe learning problems? What is going on? She's really bright. I mean, the conversations I have with her and the way that she plays and her physical acuity, she's super bright.
Yeah.
So, and her best friends are the smartest kids in the class, but just something's not connecting. It was really kind of scary.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how scared Bert was, but I was really concerned. And when it came back with sensory processing, here's a path out of it, I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll commit to doing that for a year and a half.
Well, it's so hard to get out of your own way almost from that fear. The fear of that is debilitating. Even before you know an answer, you get fearful of, whatever, autism or anything.
Totally.
But learning the path is everything.
Totally.
And getting out of your way.
It's 2025 and a new year means new opportunities. For a lot of you out there, I know you've been thinking about one thing over the holidays, and that's starting your own business. But you have so many questions. How do I get started? How do I come up with a brand? How to sell stuff to people? What am I even going to sell? Take a deep breath. Shopify's got you. How do I know? Because I had the same questions when I started. Here's what I learned. The best time to start your new business is right now. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and get your first sale. Get your store up and running easily with thousands of customizable templates, no coding or design skills required. All you need to do is drag and drop. Their powerful social media tools let you connect all your channels and create shoppable posts and help you sell everywhere people scroll. With Shopify, your first sale is closer than you think. Shopify is one of the easiest tools we have in our business. We have an online store that sells merch for Bert and for me. You can go to bertbertbert.com to find them and check out how Shopify works for us. I love their platform. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/wife, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/wife to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/wife. There's a place in Palm Springs called Rancho Las Palmas.
Been there.
You
used
have?
to go all the time. Yeah. Love it.
Your kids?
No. Oh, sorry.
With your kids?
No. Years ago. We used to go, my mom, my brother, and I, we would do like big family trips or friends join. Love it there.
You love it with the lazy river?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a hack. You ready? We used to request a bungalow facing the golf course because it has a backyard.
Yeah.
So your kids can run around the backyard and you can sit on the patio with your glass of wine and let them run free when it's too much for the pool.
Yeah.
We did that for years, every spring break for I don't even know how many years, maybe 6 years with a big group of kids and parents. And we all booked those no one wants them facing the golf course.
Right.
Because you're looking at the golf course.
Yeah.
But then the golf course is like way down a hill. So there's this big flat yard area and you just let them run. It's
that's our style of vacationing. I see that in our future.
Yeah, you should totally do that. 100%. That place is awesome. It's saved us so many times. And I'd bring my mother-in-law. So they'd end up bunking with Nana.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the best.
Sleepover with Nana when they got older. And then Bert and I had a room to ourselves.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a win-win. We got to spend time with our kids and then we'd go to dinner and Nana would have movie night and it was just the best.
That's the best. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I forget. So I have one of the main questions I had for you, Leo, is for those of you listening that don't know, Leo is Bert's business manager and you are a partner in the firm.
Yep.
And you handle a lot of entertainment.
Yep.
And so it's a big job. How many employees do you have?
We have 40 employees.
Wow.
Yeah.
How has your perspective about your career changed since you've had kids?
I think it helped me prioritize family, obviously, but personal time and the commitment to that. Because I think speaking for myself, it was easy to focus on the career and the work and volunteer as much of my time to the pursuit of the career. That comes really easy to me. And from an early age was just, I'm going to show everyone I work with I'm available and I'll give you as much time as you need. And flipping the switch a little bit on that and going, okay, I can't remember where I heard it, but a couple of years ago, close to when Rose was born, I had heard about a particular CEO who her entire career, professional career, devoted whatever night of the week it was, Tuesday night. Tuesday was, I'm out the door of my office at 5:00 because Tuesday evening is off limits to everybody. It's blocked off of my calendar. It will become such a habit that everyone will know on a Tuesday, I'm not available after 5. And I just thought that's an easy thing to implement. And I'll pick a day. And there are, of course, going to be the extreme days where maybe you have to flex. But I started with that. And I just went, I wonder if I can make that work and start that kind of a habit. And then if I do that, I can build on it and then go, okay, it'll be easier to set new parameters, because I knew with kids, those things would be coming and they were things that I wanted to do. For example, Tuesdays and Thursdays now I want to take Rose to school in the morning. It's important to me. I think it will be important to her. It's meaningful to her. Probably more meaningful to me, but
no, it's not.
So I started with that. I started with Tuesdays, 5 o'clock. I'm just going to make that I'm leaving the office. It doesn't mean I'm not responsive. It doesn't mean you can't get a hold of me, but it is sacred time. And it just means it's the building block that I can start with. And so I think that was a good start to building boundaries, because before that it was just everything, nothing's off limits. I will, every hour of the day. And I think, things like the pandemic made it really tough for everyone, because work from home made it all hours of the day. Your computer is there. And a lot of businesses had to style flex and go, okay, how do we make sure everyone can still work from home? And that's a new part of our culture or our work life that I think exists so more prominently, that everyone's still figuring out. But the boundary piece, I think, was really helpful for me, because that, the laptop can go with me everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I can sit down and work, and that's good and bad. With kids, it's been fascinating to see how much they pay attention to you paying attention to a laptop, your phone, or what have you. My daughter Rose is fantastic about reminding me that she is paying attention, because she just sticks her face in front of me and says, hi, 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 while I'm looking at this other thing.
Yeah.
And I love her so much for it, because I just close the laptop and go, that's right. This isn't my time for that.
Right.
I have an office. I'm in the office 5 days a week intentionally, because work from home for me with the kids is impossible.
No.
It's just not even a thing. Because they want the attention, rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
So the boundaries are, for me, physical. And so that was a big shift for me, if that answers the question.
It does, sort of. I have more questions now from that question. Do you feel like, I don't mean this in a negative way, but do you feel like this is what I mean. Like, when I had kids and I had to get stuff done, the time of day I had to get stuff done became more intense.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way, when I picked up my kids from school, I knew that I had really intensely done that job so that I could let it go.
Yeah.
And cook dinner and ask questions and be whatever. Do you find that shift has happened, or are you functioning kind of the same? I'm just curious about that.
I think for me, I see that in my wife, Teresa, the difficulty of everything you're explaining, because she's a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids under 3. And it is, I watch her, she has to focus when she has time.
Mm-hmm.
That, Rose is in school, Lincoln's taking a nap. I have an hour to really get stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I don't, then he's up and he wants me, and then I got to go get Rose from school, and now they're home, and nap times are when I can be really productive, until they're of an age where, she doesn't have to have her ear open all the time, or as diligently as she does now. For me, it's I get in the car and I go to work, and I now maybe it has forced me to focus when I am in work mode and out of the house. I can really focus and I think I do shift and get more done, as opposed to what it was before, which was I can take that home and work on it on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me giving up my time.
Mm-hmm.
But now, weekend time is that's theirs, for the families, at least I should say. I don't want to commit a Sunday morning to working on a project if I don't have to, if I can get it done and prioritize it during the week and during my time. And maybe it means staying late or getting up early or what have you. But, because Rose wants to get donuts on Sunday mornings, and that's our thing, and that's a quick thing, but I don't want to give it up. So those little things, I think that's the shift. I think it's condensed. It's made me condense my really focused work into specific times.
Right.
I think you have to. I don't think you can get away with not doing that now.
I don't think so.
Unless
either.
you just are, you can juggle being on a computer and playing with them at the same time.
Nah, you can't do that.
But I used to draw a ton as a kid. And so we'll see if my kids like it. But right now they like it because I force them to do it. But instead of screen time and instead of some other things, I really just I think we ignored tactile skills early, just because you're figuring it out. And then something clicks in you where I go, she needs to start learning to write, and her pen skills and all of those things are going to start building. Mm-hmm. Let's start drawing. So we got a big table and we have these giant rolls of paper, and she has paintbrushes and crayons and everything whatever she wants to use. And we sit and draw. But again, the attention thing comes into play. She likes it when I draw with her, but she doesn't because I'm very detail oriented. So if I'm going to draw something, I am focused on it and I draw it and I want it to be great for her, but it's for me too.
Yeah.
So I start zoning in and she's like, hey, over here, I'm coloring this thing. And you're like, oh yeah, this coloring isn't for me right now.
That's funny.
And Teresa's the same. She'll walk by if we're drawing or coloring or something, and she's like, you paying attention to them or just your drawing? And I'm like, thank you for the reminder.
I'm trying.
Yeah, I enjoy it too.
That's funny.
So yeah, that's how we do our time. But I love it because it is just kind of quiet time, no screens. Screens are so easy to turn on, and
aren't they?
They have the shows that are great. That I can't discredit that there's a ton of YouTube shows and this and that are super educational, and it's great. But also, I'm there and I don't want to, especially since I'm not with them all the time, at least I can focus my time and attention into us interacting.
Right.
I try to, at least.
It's so fun having kids.
Yeah.
And then when Bert and I have been talking about our kids a lot because they're gone.
Yeah.
And reflecting on who they are and who they are relative to the other kids we saw growing up, positively, negatively, and how we feel about this bullshit that is you spend 20 years and then they leave. And you're just supposed to be okay with it.
Yeah.
We're like, we love them. We enjoyed them. We loved every minute, even the shitty minutes. We loved the house full of their peers and Bert cooking on every morning that someone was over. I mean, both our house was where the sleepover happened for so long. And now it's echo in our house. We just are by ourselves and we feel like it's bullshit.
Yeah. Well, talking to you about that and watching, it's terrifying because, Teresa and I are, we aspire to want our house to be that place for our kids and their friends and it just be everything. But then for it to be
gone.
Yeah.
It's like Kaiser Soze.
Yeah.
You just poof. He's gone. Was he ever really there? I mean, we're just thrilled with who our kids turned out to be. Really. Yeah. I don't have any complaints, warts and all. I think they're great.
Yeah.
But it is interesting now that we're on the other side of it. I think you and Teresa will be similar. We're enjoying each other like we enjoyed each other when we dated, which is great. Mm-hmm. And we're able to kind of be there for each other because we're going through our loss at different paces and at different times, because it is a loss when your kids leave. That's what you want. That's the goal.
Yeah.
We've friggin' won the lottery. We have 2 kids who are in college who are thriving. And that's what you want, and a lot of people don't get that. Mm-hmm. Their kids aren't ready for that, or they haven't done anything wrong as a parent per se. They just, their kids are not in that place. And we're grateful for it, but it is a loss. And it's really kind of weird that you feel that loss And I'm sure when they get married, you'll feel it again.
I feel really fortunate in the profession that I'm in that I get to have close relationships with my clients, and I have clients who are, all different ages, and I get to see and gain knowledge from all these conversations I get to have about all these different experiences in life with their kids and with their parents and all sorts of things. And so I feel really lucky that I get to have a shaped perspective on what to appreciate and what to maybe be aware of that's coming down the road and cautious of and prepared for and all of those things. Because it's interesting to see all these different events in your life that happen that you don't have control over, that you plan for, but you don't have control over, and you don't know what's coming. And I get to hopefully be helpful in these moments for my clients and talk to them about them. But I do get to learn from it too. Mm-hmm. As helpful as I want to be, I learn too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what a good relationship should be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Working relationship or personal relationship, you should be able to learn and to teach.
Yes.
At the same time. Well, at the same time, sort of. Well, we were here to talk about finances, money, and we got to talking about personal things, which I love. I could talk to you forever, Leo, about everything. I know sometimes I feel like you were like, here, she's calling me again. Oh, God, it's going to be a 30-minute conversation. I know. I think it's because my husband tells me I talk too much. But I like myself. Yeah. I am a talker by nature. I grew up with talkers. And how else are you supposed to learn if you don't talk? Observation, I guess. But
I need talkers around me because I'm a listener. My proclivity is much more reserved, and I'm not the one that takes over a room. So
like Rose.
Yeah, I need talkers. Yeah, exactly.
It's like Rose.
Anyway, yeah. So I embrace, my mother's a talker, and we need it in our relationship because she fills the silence that I'm like quietly sitting in, and it's not for anything other than that's my predisposition.
Your mother's awesome.
She is indeed.
So has your focus on money changed since you have kids? How has your money sensibility changed, or has it?
I don't think it's changed, but it forces you to consider, it's forced me to consider strongly the push and pull between what do you want to leave for your kids? What do you want to provide to your kids? What's going to benefit them? What's going to hurt them? You want to give them everything, but that's not maybe going to help them. And so that balance is that those two scales in my head are constantly going, right? Going, okay, let's save for college for them so that's not something that they're necessarily going to think about. But then I go, well, what if they had to work for college and appreciate what it costs for education? And that's a push and pull. And then, do I want to save to be able to pay for a wedding for each of them, or for a first house, or, you and I have certainly talked about that sort of stuff, which I think there are so many good ideas and approaches that I have seen clients, colleagues, whomever implement. And there's no perfect answer. So then it's like, which path are we going to take? And then is that going to work for them? So the shift for me, at least the one that comes to mind most notably, is how do I balance what am I working for? And is it for Teresa and I solely, and to make sure that we can retire one day and all of that good stuff and take care of the kids in certain ways, but make sure that they also have to work hard? And you start comparing to yourself and you go, well, what did I have and not have? What worked? What do I feel didn't work? What did I wish I had more of? So I think Teresa and I we're a good match mentally in what we want to provide, how we spend, and where we consider value, and the balance of making sure that we're never out in front of our skis. That just is the peace of mind that we have. We never really overstretch. We're not extravagant people. And so we have comfort in, saving and spending it on the experiences or the things that are going to make us happy. Or, I like to golf, so I don't ever want to have to think about, can I golf today sort of thing. But that means not maybe doing other stuff. Mm-hmm. So there hasn't been, I don't think there's been a big change or a shift for us, but it is the consideration of the kids and how are we going to afford school? What schools do we want them to go to and why? And what do we want to do for them in the future?
Right.
Without abandoning, enjoying life in the moment. I think that's the biggest reminder. We were talking in the car this morning just about that, it's the same as the work-life balance of set boundaries to make sure I don't work so hard that we get 10 years down the road and we go, great, we saved for all these things because we worked so hard, but I missed out on going to soccer games or donuts on Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. Like those silly things that can so easily I could dismiss and go, that's okay, we'll do it next weekend. Mm-hmm. Lincoln, I'm going to start taking him to his weekend morning, gym classes or whatever they are. And I did all those with Rose and I want to do them with him. So those are the important things to me.
Right.
The finances that come with that are just tightening the belt on other areas maybe.
Right.
But I don't think there's been a tectonic shift in our mindset. I think we were really stable when Teresa and I met and aligned on a lot of those things. That is unique, and I think is a big part of what works for us. Is
right.
Neither of us surprise each other and go, "Oh, I bought a car today," or whatever it is, and they go, "What?
Really? Gee,
yeah."
I don't live with that person at all. I live with someone who comes home with a watch every other week. And I'm like, you bought a watch? What are you doing? But this is kind of new behavior also because we've not been able to afford to live like this until very recently. He had one watch until about 2 years ago, maybe 3.
Yeah.
And then he started collecting watches.
Yeah.
But, I have an impulsive shopper, definitely on my...
We're also 2 CPAs that got married, so I think
what makes you want to be a CPA? What is it? What did you like about that? So I took accounting classes. I was a finance major for a couple years, and I took accounting classes, and I could figure it out, but it didn't appeal to me as a job. So what appeals to you about it? I'm curious.
The side...
Actually, let me ask the actual question, right? Where is it on here? We asked people who are watching to send some questions. How did you get started in your business, and what made you want to do what you do?
I stumbled upon it because I was I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a finance major. I met with as many people as I could after college that were successful in business, whatever that meant. I just figured they're ahead of a company or they're successful defined by what my parents said or who knows. And so I sat with a ton of people and just asked them questions about their careers and their business. And really a through line seemed to be, listen, if you don't know what you want to do or what business you want to be in, just find a company that interests you and start in accounting, because every company, the dollars and cents of it are the driving force behind it. So if you understand the accounting of a business, then you'll understand the business. That's the thing that stuck with me. So then I said, okay, accounting, let's start there. And maybe I need to be better educated in accounting because I had a finance degree, but not an accounting degree. And then I started meeting accountants, and I looked at accounting firms in LA and Sherman Oaks and Encino and places. And Beverly Hills, I met with people and all really great conversations. And I got connected to someone in business management. It was, an accounting firm, but it dealt with high net worth people or entertainers. And that was the connection, because I liked accounting in terms of details and numbers and everything tallies and ties, right? Mm-hmm. That's a really comforting for my mindset. I love that. Mm-hmm. figuring out the math problem. But I also wanted to interact with people, and I didn't the traditional sense of accounting and bookkeeping and things like that. At that time, I wasn't super drawn to. But when you added a component of, there's some personality to this, and you're not working with 200 people that only meet with you in April when they want you to do their taxes, this is a profession where you get to interact all year long and be a part of the story of that. And the tax return obviously comes into play, but there's so much more, right? The planning side and future planning and historical analysis and all of that. That's where I started to go, oh, wait a minute, this exists. This is cool. Let me find out more about it. Because just prior to that, I had kind of investigated and thought, well, maybe I should work for the IRS because I'll learn all the inside scoop about audits and what you can get away with, right? I thought that was a great idea. And so many family members were like, you're crazy. Who wants to work for the IRS as a 20-year-old? Anyway, so I kind of stumbled into it, but the appeal to me was you get to be so much more interactive than what I thought traditional accounting maybe was going to be. And so then I just poured myself into it. And that was that.
Ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes. So you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. Lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor Keto meals. Based on a randomized controlled clinical trial with Factor Keto, results will vary depending on diet and exercise. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. Personally, I love Factor because I love their smoothies, but I just add a little scoop of protein powder and shake them up. They're delicious. They're portable. You throw them in your bag when you're running out the door, and they're delicious. That's one of the great ways I get my protein. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/party50off and use code PARTY50OFF to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code PARTY50OFF at factormeals.com/party50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. So define business management for someone who's listening. So that
I know it's such a vague.
Yeah.
We've never come up with a better title for business manager, but in at least in our context, working with high net worth individuals and entertainers, and it is my elevator pitch. It's anything with a dollar sign in my client's life, I'm involved in, and that can be as minute a conversation about a credit card bill or a credit card charge up to we're going to move to Canada. What does that mean? What does that mean for our savings, and how do we buy a house there or anywhere? And insurance, things we've talked about before, real estate, insurance, investing. It doesn't mean that, we intentionally don't do things like bind insurance policies because there shouldn't be a conflict of interest in, hey, you got this policy that I secured for you and made a profit off of, or same goes for your real estate. Trying to make sure that it is an unbiased opinion in your life about financial planning or transactions or decisions that you're going to make, and help just be that guide or resource or other person to talk to that isn't biased. The opinion I give you on a property you're thinking about buying is not going to be based on me living in it, right? It is a third-party opinion about the area or the neighborhood or the risks or things like that. So it's really fun. The longer I've been in it, the more fun it's been, because we get to build a relationship, and it's so much more than maybe what I even thought it was going to be, because I wasn't exposed to, when I started in it, I wasn't exposed to how interactive and involved you get to be with your clients. Good and bad. I mean, there's the scary stuff. These fires here in LA recently is a really scary side to this, where you become people lean on you and go, "Are we okay?" And there's a lot of information, accurate and not so accurate, that people hear from all over. And then the text comes in, "Hey, do we have da 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 da? Are we this or that?" And you go yes or no because, and so you do kind of take it on, and you have to learn how to not take on other people's burdens so much so that it gives you anxiety or stresses you out. It's hard to do. I mean, that's taken a long time to try and not let it impact me, because oftentimes the questions being asked are hopeful that I'm going to be calm and not making a rash decision for you just based on fear.
Right.
So, yeah.
A lot of phone calls saying, "Do we have State Farm as homeowners insurance?" Because I think we do, actually. Because they dropped a lot of fire coverage.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy.
Yeah.
I don't even know how this is going to recover. How does the economy recover? How do we recover from this fire? Okay, here's a great question. What do you think the economic implications are for these fires for LA?
I'm a little bit of an optimist.
I like that.
I look at it in terms of, I mean, there are industries that flourish from disasters. And I mean, the extreme example is when wars happen, there are industries that flourish. But I think things like infrastructure and the opportunity to rebuild things better, the age of some of the homes in the Palisades that I think they weren't prepared for, forget fire disasters, but things like earthquakes or high winds, they could have been blown over just by virtue of 100-mile-an-hour winds. Who knows? But I think important changes. I'm hopeful that my house does the power lines, everything's underground. And so the benefit to that, we didn't lose our power once. That's not simple, but that's a change that perhaps can or should happen in the Palisades that would be a benefit to everyone out there. Who knows? But I do think that there are going to be the people that opportunistically look at it and go, okay, how can we make it better? It's still a beautiful place. It's just going to take a long time.
Yeah.
The displacement of people has just been so tough to see and hear, and kids having to do new schooling or find all of that just really, really quickly is kind of devastating when you put yourself in that perspective.
Yeah, it is. It's really hard. We talked to our friend Jennifer, who's helps Bert. Has been like his wardrobe stylist person for many, many shows and events. Lost her house in Altadena, and we just talked to her yesterday, and she's just so emotional and upset, and still keeps saying it. I feel like it still hasn't hit me.
Yeah,
and she was at her house yesterday, just sifting through the rubble, and it's still not hitting her. I think it's just hitting her in, waves over and over and over again. I can't imagine what it would be like. They left their house at 3:00 in the morning with nothing.
Yeah.
They just got in the car and left, and her whole neighborhood is completely gone.
Yeah.
The whole neighborhood. So I don't even know how you process that. And I mean, the people here are not the first people to lose a home in a fire.
Right.
This is not something that's, crazy new. It's just the volume, the sheer volume of people. Where are they going? Are people going to leave California? Are they going to take this as an opportunity to move to Austin or Nashville or New York or Chicago or San Francisco?
Yeah.
Maybe not San Francisco. San Francisco's dicey at the moment, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think it's
exiting.
Yeah, it's put that question in so many people's minds just about where would you go if you weren't thinking about it before? Where would you and what would you consider? Which sparks interesting conversations just about this in particular. My wife and I were talking about this morning just about the concept of where would you go, and you figure out what weather conditions you would be willing to tolerate even when you're just considering this. So if you were immediately required to make that decision, I don't know what we would do. To be honest,
you're a SoCal guy.
I'm a SoCal guy.
Born
My
and
wife
raised,
is too.
right?
Yeah, we live we live a mile down the road from my wife's house that she grew up in.
Yeah.
So we are
You have
local.
no concept of weather.
No. But and so I go, maybe snow would be, a nice change to deal with. I don't know.
No,
I know.
It's not.
I know. That's her mindset.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to get used to.
I know.
There's a lot of maintenance involved with like keeping stuff shoveled and it's just to get to work.
Yeah.
I remember having to go to school. Now, Georgia doesn't get a lot of snow, but the windshield of the car would ice overnight. So for my dad to take me to school, he'd have to go outside, crank the car, let it run, let the heat and the defrost work, and then get a scraper and scrape the ice off the windshield just to take me to school.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have snow. Like there was no snow on the road. It just got that cold. And so just that one shift you take for granted, because when you move out here and the one day you have to run your defroster, you're like, I can't see out of my windshield.
Yeah.
It's nothing. It's a joke.
We have it so easy when it comes to that stuff. So that's the other piece that we've talked about a lot, which is, we're dealing with this now, and it's a reality check about Mother Nature, and it's also when it was just the wind and not the fire. It was, wow, this is what a lot of people deal with year in and year out, seasonally, whether it's, hurricanes, tornadoes, like these things happen regularly in places in the country that we're getting a little bit of a feel of, and it's scary.
Yeah, I know. Anybody who's, I think, well, for me, I grew up with tornadoes.
Yeah.
Bert grew up with hurricanes, and we're like earthquake.
Right.
This is not a big deal.
Right.
Obviously, we haven't had a Northridge level earthquake, something that was super disastrous. But for the most part, when the house shakes, we're like, okay, earthquake. Back to sleep. It's not a big deal. But I think you're right. We are finally, not that we wanted to get a taste of a natural disaster, but this is a real natural disaster that probably hasn't happened since the Northridge earthquake.
Right.
I mean, so many people that were here, you were here obviously, but I heard so many stories of how disastrous and devastating that was to the city and to structures. And I remember looking at a house when we were first buying our very first house, and it was a house in Hollywood, which was pretty far from Northridge, that had some serious cracks in it. The lady had lived there for a long time, and there was like floor to ceiling cracks in the walls. And I was like, what is this from? And the realtor said it's from the Northridge earthquake. And I thought, how is this house still standing?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the walls are broken in half and just leaning against each other. How's this woman still in this house? And I'm sure that happened all over the city. I know there've been a lot of retrofitting and whatnot since then. But yeah, anyway. The fires have been crazy. I bet you have been really inundated with a lot of people with a lot of questions.
A lot of questions, but I think they're good conversations.
Yeah.
It's preparedness and things like that. It's always great to have that put back in your brain about, hey, what's your get up and go plan,
and
do you have one? Yeah.
You have to have a good lab partner, Leo.
Mm-hmm.
Bert Kreischer has himself a good lab partner. I had solar panel, rechargeable generator.
Yeah.
I have a dual fuel generator with 3 full propane tanks and a 5-gallon gas can ready to go.
Yeah.
I had, let's see what all, I had chainsaw. Just bought a chainsaw.
Yeah.
And Bert was like, why do we need a chainsaw? And I went, well, if we had hurricane force winds, we have so many big trees.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get out?
Yeah.
We got to cut it up.
Yeah.
Oh, let's get the biggest chainsaw we can find. So when this started, Bert, because I'd just shown him these like major lights that have these solar panels, and I showed him where all our stuff was. I bought this big bladder that goes in a tub.
Okay.
That's the size of a tub.
Okay.
So you can fill up your tub, but it's in this bladder. So if debris falls, it doesn't get in your water.
Sure.
And then you just pump it out.
Super
and he was
smart.
like, this is the smartest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't have is the 3 days worth of food. We'd be screwed with food. I don't have that.
Yeah, but you're like the A+ student when it comes to this stuff.
I don't know about A+, A-, maybe. But anyway, let's go to another question.
Sure.
Long-term savings account uses. Someone wanted to know, why would you have a savings account for long-term? I'm going to add to that question.
Mm-hmm.
If not a savings account, then what? I mean, most people, I think it would be fair to say, most people I grew up with don't invest in the stock market. They think like money market or savings account or 401k that's connected to their job.
Yeah.
So why would you have a savings account? And if you wouldn't have a savings account, what would you have instead?
I put it into, I'd say I have it in 4 buckets for myself and just the way I think about it and try and help formulate for my clients or whomever. Retirement is the super long-term bucket that, I think the sooner you start, the easier it is to have that habit that you're putting into it regularly for that future plan. And hopefully you don't need to tap into it until you retire, and then you have that and it's what you live on. And then you've got kind of the next tier down, which is the long-term planning for the money that you're going to maybe want to tap into before retirement, because you don't want to touch your retirement money early. It's okay. And then the next tier down is what's my, within this year, I don't want to invest it maybe because I know I'm going to use it later this year. I want it as my safety net. And then I've got my immediate, like my checking account that I'm just paying my recurring, rent, mortgage, credit card bill every month, whatever it is, food and all of that. And so I just always, I implement the mentality of checking account, just keep what you need for the month or two, ideally. And then the next bucket, the savings account, which is, not really invested. Maybe it's getting, money market, like you're saying, just kind of the interest on it that's short term. That's your safety net for the year. If you got hit with a bigger than expected expense, or, you wanted to save for the holidays or who knows what, that's where you're putting it. And that's got, your 6 months or your year of reserve, who knows? And then everything else outside of that is those 2 final buckets, the long-term savings and your retirement. And those are the ones that, if you can have them invested, and when I say that, I mean, I try and keep it simple. I mean, I think for most people, it's keep it simple, mutual funds and things. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. You don't have to go out and be spending a lot of money on an advisor to, manage. But you can find advisors or Charles Schwab or like who knows what.
Merrill Lynch. Most of your Bank of America will help you if you go in there.
Exactly.
They have an investment person in your local branch of your bank usually that will help you move your money from your savings. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So at the end of the year, I have my safety net savings. Do I take some of that and put it into my long-term savings and then take some of my long-term savings and put it into retirement? Is that what you would do?
Well, so the retirement piece is a little bit, you're limited on what you can do, right? And it depends on your circumstance, what your job provides, or what you're doing on your own. So adding to retirement savings in a retirement account has some limitations. But you can also treat your long-term savings as retirement. It just it's not structured the same way, but it's for you for the future. So call it retirement savings, call it long-term savings. I like the idea of don't wait until one time during the year to think about this stuff and put it away then. I think for most people, kind of January is a reassessment time because, you've finished your year. You have an idea of if you're going to owe taxes or not, or maybe you wait until April when you find that out. And then it's just about, I always try and kind of adjust every couple of months and go, okay, did we have that expense or have we built up a little bit of extra savings than what we think we need? I like the idea of establishing how much makes you feel comfortable in your checking account and or checking and savings account, that like short-term stuff. How much do you need in there to feel comfortable? Anything above that dollar amount, don't wait until the end of the year to adjust. I just adjust it. Just move it as you go, because savings as you go, it makes it more palatable and it just adds up and it compounds and all that good stuff. And I think it's a good rhythm to be in. So that's what I do. those 4 buckets, I think, are the simplistic methodology of thinking about it for me, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you add to that? Debt. So like, say I have, someone asked a specific amount, but I'm just going to make it up.
Mm-hmm.
Say you have $15,000 in credit card debt and $15,000 in college student loan debt.
Sure.
And you still want to do those 4 buckets. How do you do that? Like, do you eliminate your debt completely before you start saving, or do you kind of split the difference? And I want everyone to keep in mind. I understand. I grew up on a very limited income. I had student loans. I had a lot of credit card debt, and I tried to make it work. Living in a studio apartment, eating spaghetti 3 meals a day. I understand that people are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be disrespectful to that. I don't want someone to hear and go, all of this is unattainable.
Right.
Well, if we believed all of it was unattainable, then we stay in the same cycle somewhat, I think. You have to adjust the way you think, even in living paycheck to paycheck, to figure out how you can make positive changes. I know that's what I had to do, is I had to adjust the way I thought about my money to be able to start getting out of debt, because I had gotten myself in a place of feeling like I would never get out of debt. And how you feel about money, and how to me, this was my experience, when I was afraid to look at my money stayed scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's a perfect way of saying it, because my mentality about doing it regularly is to stay in touch with it so it's not scary.
Right.
That is maybe what has shaped my mentality about it, of just make it not scary for yourself by being in the know about it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean you're going to know every little detail about what the best strategy is. The debt component, again, there's no right or wrong answer in my opinion, because it's all about how it makes you feel and your emotions tied to it, and fear and comfort and all of those things. Because, if you've got those debts and you've got enough money to pay them off, it maybe doesn't necessarily make sense to pay it off, because all of a sudden you've depleted all your savings. And if something bad were to happen, you're going to either have to incur more debt, or you're not going to have the money to pay for it. Or if there's something you want to do, maybe it's not even something bad happening. So if it's going to be really meaningful and be this burden lifted off you, and you're going to feel better mentally and all of those things, then paying it off may make the most sense if you can. Chipping away at it is, of course, the alternative, and keeping a safety net of your money and savings and doing all at the same time. But there's also balancing. If you have debt that you're paying, a really high interest rate on, and it's costing you more than it is worth to keep. If you're paying 10% interest on something, I've talked about the concept of a mortgage, and which mortgage to pay down quicker if you want to. If you've got multiple mortgages or multiple debts, well, which one are you paying more interest on? Which one has the higher interest rate? Pay that one down faster, maybe, because the alternative would be to invest the money rather than pay it down. But if you're going to invest that money and only get a couple percent interest because you're trepidatious about investing it aggressively, then the value to you is maybe to get rid of the debt that you're paying interest on. Mm. So obviously there are a lot of different circumstances, and the mental component and emotional component come into play for so many people. But I know how freeing, just from experience with clients or friends and family, how freeing it is to get certain pieces of debt off your plate. And it almost, allows you to flourish a little bit more, knowing that you don't have that weighing on you. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of fear around debt too. I mean, some people are just raised to think that credit cards are bad, and I know we've talked about credit cards long ago, but it's all about how you use them, and if you educate yourself more about them, on how to use them and for them to benefit you, then they become really powerful tools. Mm-hmm. But there's such great questions to ask to learn more about, mm-hmm. because taking all the fear away from it, I think, is just such a big hurdle. So,
Yeah, I think it is. And I think debt, at least for me, I had a lot of shame connected with my debt. I felt like a failure because I was in credit card debt, that I was really ashamed. And I would get out of credit card debt and because of circumstances, get back in it for exactly what you're talking about. I'd get myself out and then I'd get in a situation where I didn't have the savings and now I'm back in credit card debt, which caused me so much shame. It's like this big shame cycle. And I think if you, at least for me, when I got out of it, I just had to reframe it. You just have to kind of, if you can identify a feeling that's negative, that's connected, like shame, like I'm ashamed of being in debt, and then question that and say, well, why? Why?
Right.
I'm in debt. If I'm in debt because I'm like going to a bar every night and shopping like crazy and living outside my means, that connects one feeling. But if you're in debt because you need groceries and you only spend money when you have to, and you had a medical emergency, or that might be a different feeling connected to that debt. So I don't know, for me anyway, identifying that I was really ashamed, I was really embarrassed that I was in debt because I'm a smart person.
Right.
And I'm actually good at math and accounting. And my very, very first job was bookkeeping for my dad. I was a finance major.
Yeah.
I should not be in debt.
Right.
But I was.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, maybe that would be helpful for someone to just think about teasing out that feeling, because if you just look at money factually, then it makes money easier. So to even just check in with it regularly. If you think about something that you don't have an emotional attachment to, that you check in with regularly, like, I don't know, I check my text messages regularly. I'm not scared to do that.
Right.
Just something that you check in regularly. Why can't you apply that? If you remove the emotion, you should be able to apply that to money.
I agree. You said text message, I think email. I think a lot of people, and I think we've all had that moment where you're coming back to a big inbox or something, right? You've taken a day off or whatever, vacation, and it's going to be big, so you drag it out until you absolutely need to look, and then it's great. This is going to be, terrible. The same goes for your bank account or your credit card. Credit card is the biggest question maybe that I get, or thing that people are most uneasy about. And my perspective on it is kind of the other end of the spectrum. Credit cards are such a good tool that protect you, because if someone's just using their debit card that's linked to their checking account, you're just giving everyone access to your checking account. Fraud risk is so much higher. If someone got, if there was fraud and someone wiped out your checking account, the bank's not that forgiving, going, oh yeah, we'll replenish all that money that someone stole from you. They don't just do it like that. It's not how it works. With a credit card, if there's fraud on your credit card, the bank goes, great, we shut it down. We declined all those charges. Thanks for letting us know. We'll send you a new card. Life keeps going, and they investigate, right? It's not that it's not a fraudulent thing or whatever happens, but it doesn't impact you in so much that your savings or your checking account, the money has not been touched if you're not using that debit card. And that just fundamentally for me is start there and go, okay, this is to protect me. I can have a credit card, and as long as I'm not going to ignore it and just charge and not pay attention to the balance, I just need to make sure I don't spend more than I would if I was treating it as though it's my money in my checking account, right? I can't spend more than I have because that's more than I have. And then, then it's not scary.
Right.
Yeah. And you get to build points or whatever. There's other benefits to it we could go on and on about. But if you apply that principle to that, you can start applying it to, then, the snowball starts growing when it comes to the concept of a mortgage and buying a house and what that means. And that it's debt, but how does that apply? It's offset against this thing that you own. And, all other types of debt. School, right? You're hopefully making a decision to get educated to be able to earn in the future more than you have to borrow. So I think just taking the fear out of it first and foremost and allowing yourself to stay tapped in A lot of people ask, about a budget and what should my budget be? And that's such a gray area because everyone's lives are so different. I get that question a lot about what should my budget be?
Mm-hmm.
How much should I spend on XYZ?
Mm-hmm.
And I go, the things that are important to you, you have to decide, right? You are contained within how much you have in savings and how much you earn. And then we can back into it. And what type of lifestyle do you want? Can you afford that lifestyle, or are you going to run out of money based on how you spend? And so it is maybe a little bit less of a black and white answer I can't really give, but it's a conversation to say, great, let's figure out what that means to you.
Mm-hmm.
But budget gets thrown out as, it's a little bit easier to say budget if you're saying, great, I want to spend X dollars a month on these categories of things. How do we do that?
Right.
Because I want to save this much and my paycheck is this flat amount. That's how much I have monthly to do it. And, if you give yourself those parameters, then it's easier to do. But,
well, I'll tell you, in my Girl Scout troop, Kathy and I came up with a finance badge because we didn't feel like they were learning some basic finance knowledge in school. And in our finance badge, we had each girl draw a profession out of a hat, research what their pay would be for that profession, and then write a budget based on my personal, like electric bill, gas bill, all that stuff.
mm-hmm.
Search for an apartment, figure out what that would cost, and write an expense report based on fixed expenses and variable expenses and what they were, and then put on their income, and then see what their surplus was, and then consider what they would do with their surplus or their deficit.
Right. Yeah.
And every single Girl Scout has told me that was the most terrifying, horrible thing they had ever experienced. Ever. That they had no idea how much it cost to live.
Yeah.
And how much people made in real life, and how those two things affect each other, income and expenses, and how they affect each other. It was so eye-opening for us to observe them going through this process. We did it over 5 meetings. We did one about credit cards, one about filing your taxes, one about writing a budget. I don't remember the other 2 offhand, but everything kind of had a purpose, and it all tied together. Like, this is what adulting is with money.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, that was horrible. It makes me not want to grow up. Every single Girl Scout, not one person went, God, that was great.
Right. Yeah.
They all were like, I'm never leaving home. Like, I don't want any of this responsibility. So that, to me, indicates how many people are really scared to look at their finances in a fact-based way.
Yeah.
Because they were like, why am I working? I'm working so hard to pay for all this stuff, and at the end of the day, I have $30. That stinks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, but you have to work. I mean, you have to have food, shelter. You have to have insurance. You have to have these things. You can't not have that as an adult.
It, as fearful as it was for them to do, have you talked to them after the fact of how it has helped them now? Do they feel like that was a benefit to run that exercise? Yeah.
Yes. So the older girls who are now freshmen in college have all said it was the worst thing they did, and they're really glad they did it.
Yeah.
So, but still, I just found it fascinating that not one girl was like, thank God I have this information. Now I can walk into the world prepared.
Yeah.
They were all like, I'm terrified.
No. Yeah.
So it's so crazy how we all deal with money. Let's see. Let me ask a couple more questions, and then we should let you get on with your day. Is a refi worth it?
Again, black and white answer would be great, but it depends, right? Because refinancing can take there can be a couple different paths, right? Refinancing where you're resetting right? You're talking about refining your home mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
So conceptually, we'll just use real world or real time example. Interest rates are really high right now. So you may buy a home right now and have a higher interest rate relative to recent history. And let's say 5 years down the road, interest rates are, I don't know, half of what they are, just making it up, half of what they are now. The obvious answer seems like, yeah, refi because you're going to pay less interest. But considerations need to be understanding what you're doing, because there are costs associated with refinancing. You're sometimes creating a whole new mortgage, so it can be a real burden. You're basically applying for a whole new mortgage. So if you today got a 30-year mortgage at a whatever interest rate, 6 something, and 5 years from now get the opportunity to refi or are considering it, and interest rates are cut in half or whatever they are, financially it sounds like it makes obvious sense, but what are the fees that the bank's going to charge you? And are they refinancing in a way that you're going to get a whole new 30-year mortgage? If you did a 30-year mortgage today, you're 5 years closer to paying it off 5 years from now. But are you willing to reset and go, great, we're starting over. It's the same mortgage. We owe the same amount. We now have 30 more years instead of 25 years to pay it off, but we're paying less. Some people have the opportunity, depending on the bank and the mortgage you get today, and it's a good question to ask when you get your mortgage, is can you do things like, can you refinance, but it just be a rate adjustment for a fee? So sometimes the bank says, great, we'll do rate adjustments, but it'll cost you, the bank will charge you, making it up, 10 grand, 20 grand to do it. But over the long term, if it's a significant interest adjustment, then it's going to pay off. You're going to save a boatload of money on a monthly basis. And it may be as simple as, yeah, your mortgage is going to go down by $500 a month, or, who knows, and it's going to cost you 10 grand. Well, in a year and a half, you're going to have more than paid for that. You'll have saved enough money. So refinancing conceptually feels like it should be a no-brainer, yes. But the circumstances, and there are some questions to ask about it just to make sure it's not costing you more than you think.
Who would someone ask that? Who, like, if I lived in Bowden, and I was like, maybe I should refinance. Is there someone I could go ask?
I mean, typically, if you already have a mortgage and you're thinking about refinancing, talking to your lender, just reaching out and saying, I wanted to explore refinancing. Can you break down the costs? Hopefully, you get someone who communicates well. You obviously don't want to take everything at face value, but at the same time, they kind of have to be transparent about these things. But knowing those questions to ask, going into getting a mortgage about what your options are in the future, I think are really important and good to be equipped with. The other is refinancing for a purpose other than just making your monthly payment smaller. Sometimes you can, you do things like a cash out refi where you're saying, we've been in our house for 5 or 10 years. We really want to make some remodels or changes or upgrades. We don't have the cash on hand to do that. Cash out refi, especially when interest rates were really low, were a thing that a lot of people were doing, but they were nervous to do it. They didn't know what it meant or what the implications were. And it effectively means all of the equity that you've built up in your home. Maybe your home, since you bought it, has grown in value just by the virtue of the market growing. And with you paying your mortgage, you're paying it down. So your ownership in your home has grown. And you maybe want to tap into the stake of the increased value of your home. You want to pull some of that money out to improve it. Mm-hmm. That's an option too. And in those scenarios, it's just about understanding how much you're pulling out, what your new mortgage would be, because you're effectively telling the bank, hey, will you loan us more money for the home that you've already loaned us money on? Or a new bank maybe comes in and says, pay off our old loan and give us a new mortgage. And they'll say, great, your house is worth more, so you can take out some of that money that you've paid in. Those are really, they can be really, really beneficial. And again, a lot of fear and confusion surrounding them. And so those are things, finding someone to talk to about it, I think is really, really helpful and can be hard to do. But starting with a banker, whether it's the person, the bank that's lent to you already, or going to a new one and just saying, can you walk me through what this would look like? There are lending brokers that help you find a bank that makes sense for you, that can be really helpful too, because they'll talk you through it. And I've known some really smart lending brokers that they do, they'll go above and beyond because they're trying to say, hey, I'm not associated with any particular bank. Let's find you the best thing for you. And they can be really helpful to talk to because they'll walk you through some of this stuff too.
Do you have any advice for any resources about money? Like, is there a website that a layman could go to learn about investing or learn about saving? Or do you know anything like that? I've been curious about that myself. Like there was no internet when I was 20. There was nothing like that. I think AOL dial-up had just started. But
it's so different now because Google it's such a fantastic tool. It'll direct you to, they're all different sites. I mean, Investopedia used to be kind of the go-to one that always seemed to be, top tier or top search. But now I find myself finding all different types. I mean, especially for me, sometimes it's researching tax law and finding articles about it. And so it's all different. I mean, I don't have one necessarily that I would say this is your go-to place. Google now is don't use ChatGPT for that sort of stuff would be my advice. Just because AI stuff right now isn't, you can still get wrong answers. So I would just be careful about that.
Well, that's good advice right there. Just be careful about ChatGPT.
Or just AI stuff in general, not to pick on ChatGPT. But
because they'll come get you.
Yeah,
they're listening. It's Big Brother's listening.
Exactly. But yeah, I would just be careful with that because it's so easy to do now to ask, an AI generator and get some answer, and it feels like must be spot on because it's pooling all internet info. But sometimes this stuff isn't black and white,
right?
As we've said.
So I think for people who are new to my podcast, we've podcasted several times, but long time ago. So maybe we can highlight our past episodes. I know we did one about credit cards that Halston claims changed his life.
Love it.
Because he got a reward-based credit card, and I think he took his whole honeymoon on points or something. Is that right,
awesome.
Halston?
Yes.
Yes. So that's a great episode to go back and watch. But they've all been about finance. We
did credit cards. I think real estate or estate planning conversation, maybe investing conversation.
I think so.
Fundamental. I think they're all good.
And they were all great.
Hopefully you can stay awake during them.
No. We're very entertaining.
You're entertaining.
We are very entertaining.
You are.
Well, you are a likable, easy to listen to, very educated, approachable person. So I think you are also very easy to listen to.
My Teresa, my wife, said this morning, she's like, I can't wait to pull the YouTube of this episode up for our kids to watch. They got so excited the other day. We had a Zoom. I was at work and we did a Zoom with somebody, I can't remember who, my wife and I. And so she was at home. And so we were on the screen together and my daughter walked by and she couldn't. She was like, what is going on? Dad's on the screen, but he's not here. Mom's on the screen. So she interrupted the whole meeting. Everyone thought it was hilarious. And so she's like, I can't wait to see what they think when you're up on the TV on YouTube.
That's so cute.
I know, we'll see.
Well, thank you for coming and talking to me about that. I know we didn't get to every question, but we talked about other things too much. Yeah. So maybe we'll do it again sometime soon.
Of course.
But thank you so much, Leo, for your advice.
You're so welcome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.